Okay. Now all the groups have been finalized and set. For the next 2 weeks, your team will be going over these DoD documents. The DoD 8500.2. We are in section 4 of Appendix 4, if you really will. What they call Enclosure 4. This is where you're going to understand what these terminologies like IAAT is. IA is the area of which this control means. The control name, like CT, whatever's that control is titled. And then the control level where it's 1, 2, or 3. If it's a Mac 3, it's low level. It's a Mac 1, high level. All right? So, what we have here is our attachments, depending on what kind of systems we're going to do. I want us to do Mac 2 public. So you're going to focus on attachments A and A3 and A6. Those are the ones that you're going to deal with the controls for these systems. So we're going to go over one together. So remember A3 and A6, right? Let me get down to it. Here's attachment 1. So we need to go to A3, right? Here's A2, attachment 2. Okay, A3. We're going to have what we call DCAR. DCAR-1. This is a procedural review. All you have to do is the PMO says, we do an annual IA review that is comprehensively evaluates our policies and processes to ensure procedural consistency, to ensure that they fully support the goal of uninterrupted services. You make a statement on a document. Boom, that one's taken care of. This is how you read this particular document, okay? Everyone with me, I want eyes up here. Don't look at your computer screens. Subject area, security design and configuration. That's what DC stands for. Everyone with me? AR, annual review. Y'all following it now? DC is design and configuration. AR stands for, it should be annual review, not procedural review, same thing. Because it's an annual review. -1 means it's the lowest level. It's a minimal thing, okay? If you have a -1 that is non-compliant, it's usually not going to fail you, all right? Does that make sense? It's a documentation kind of thing. Second one, again, we're in the security design and configuration. BP, security best practices. You kind of see where those numbers are coming from now, right? -1, the DoD information system security design incorporates best security practices such as single sign-on, biometrics, PKI. Make sense? Now, granted, this is written for the Department of Defense, but it's also what you need to evaluate. Just take out the words Department of Defense on anything in here, and it gives you a great subject matter. Y'all following along? So we can keep coming down.
What document are you on?
This is 8500.2.
Okay, that explains why.
You're an attachment or enclave or enclosure 4, and this is attachment 3. In this particular one, there are 64 IA controls, 27 for integrity, and 37 for availability. That tells you where your CIA triad is. Now here to the side tells you exactly what part of that triad that particular thing focuses on. Now does that help you a little bit better? You kind of understand the scope of your project that way. So now I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. Okay, we have identification and authentication, right? IA. We have TS, which means token and certificate standards. How important is this going to be in a web server? It better be. Identification and authentication is accomplished with using a PKI Class 3 certificate and hardware security token, you're not going to be able to do this. Okay? Just say they have a security token. Write a little document saying they have a security token, something the ISO can implement. Does that make sense? Some of these you're not going to be able to do. Like when we get down here to the P's, PESL, the physical environmental, a screen lock. Can you do a screen lock on a server? Absolutely. In a VM, you can do the screen lock. But can you do a fire suppression system in here?
Right.
I don't want you to worry on the PEs. You understand why? Because there's things you won't be able to do. We'll just put not applicable. When the eyes say, do what?
Emergency lighting.
Not applicable for these scenarios. But this is really where I want you to look at, because I want you to get to know these, so that when you go to the field, you understand how to really secure the environment. Okay, this is a good baseline. Don't do everything it says, because if you do, your system will be locked down so tight you're not going to be able to. Never mind. Now let's go to 6.
Attachment 6.
Yes. It's attachment 5. Attachment 6. Let's look at here. The audit record content. Are you going to be able to do this? Absolutely. And you better be able to audit it, because I want to know the user ID of the person that logged in, successful or unsuccessful attempts, date and time of that event, and what type of an event it was. Because if you do this, then you will have ECAP. Least privilege. You see how you're going to be able to write your documents to these? You can almost write the document back stating with what this says. Does that make sense? If it is a documentation thing. Yes, Kelly?
Are we actually writing out the process of doing these steps, or just telling the ISO, do it?
No, what you're going to do, if it's something like this, conformance and monitoring testing, you need to say, or audit record retention, you need to have proof that you can do it. So all you have to do is write a little note saying, all audit records are kept in this safe in this room. So that the evaluator, your ISO, and then the auditor or the reviewer can go and say, okay, I'm going to come into this room and validate that they are here. Does that make sense to you?
How does that apply to these servers?
How does it apply to these servers? You better have an audit of who accessed your web server.
Okay.
Those audit logs will be kept in this file cabinet right here in room 221 on the second floor of the business building. Does that make sense? Even though they won't be, because I want you to keep it digitized in a document. But you use a physical storage container and just say it where it's located. If you need to ask someone like a question, an interview, like I can say, Elise, if I'm the ISO, I can come back to Elise. She was the PMO or the project manager for her group. I can say, okay, Elise, where did you keep your audit files?
From 13.
GATO, you're out of here. Okay? Like I said, some of these you're not going to be able to do, all right? Because they're more for the Windows 2008 server or the server 2012. Does it make sense? Some of these are going to apply to those IIS. That's why you read that STIG. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Remember, let me see if I can't. Downloads. Web policy. Okay, here's the web STIG. DCPR-1. You'll see that right there? What you didn't do is come over here, look for DCPR-1. Right here. Find the next one. Here it is. The CM process. That's the only one I'm going to have you do. Make sense? Compare what you have to do for the STIG which is right here, you can query the IO to determine if the site has a detailed process of its configuration management. So that ISO can come back to you as the project manager and say, do you have a detailed process?
So we're doing a detailed process for the ISO.
Kind of.
Is the first step.
Yes. You're explaining if there's documentation that needs to be kept, you create that documentation.
So we're doing the documentation on, okay, set the permissions on the user accounts at this.
Now, the ISO is going to do that part if it's a technical based. So for the first 2 weeks, your group is going to work on the policies. ISO usually is part of your PMO. Okay? Your information security officer. They're going to be the ones implementing those technical controls for you that actually do on the server. A project manager is not going to do that. You're just going to do documentation such as a business continuity plan, a DRP, things of that nature.
So basically we're saying these are the things that need to be done.
Right.
Okay?
Identify everything that needs to be done in these 2 weeks.
Set the permissions at certain levels.
Right. It'll tell you specifically what it is.
Okay.
And then, so what you're going to do this week, over this week and next week, you're going to come up and list out everything that you have to do for Apache and everything you have to do for IIS off those web stigs that y'all downloaded last week. Okay? Match them up. Use the 8500.2, match it up and copy and paste so you know exactly what that requirement is. If it is a documentation requirement, you create the document in the PMO area. If it is a technical requirement, the ISO will handle it in the next 2 weeks.
But we do want to note that it should happen. Like as the PMO, do we want to say, hey ISO, all this? Just
No,
all it? No.
just
Don't mention it.
you'll have all the controls that you have to do.
Okay.
The STIG will tell you every control that you're going to have to do. If it says you need a COOP, like this particular one is talking about configuration management plan or a COOP, the PMO would create a COOP or a configuration management plan because it's a documentation. If it is a technical aspect, something that would have to be done to install the server or put this type of control on the server, the ISO sections will handle that. So
Does the PMO handle the planning out what specific software is going to be used?
usually the PMO would say, well, we're going to run it on IIS or Apache. But in this instance, I'm telling you, you're running it on both so you understand how to do both. Does that make sense? PMO would say, here's my project. Here's exactly what we're going to do. The ISO would handle all this.
All of the programs, all of the software already on these servers that need to be there.
That is correct. I'm just making you install it so that you're familiar with how to do it. I said I'm making y'all install it so that you're familiar with how to do it. Yes.
Are we doing a PMO for each server?
No, you are the PMO. You're going to have two different web
I
servers.
should say, are we making a policy for each server?
It needs it. Because if it, like for example, a configuration management plan or a COOP, if you're having both of them as part of your thing, you're going to already have it in the COOP, so you can use just the one COOP and just say it's in this location. Does that make sense? Focus right now on just figuring out what policies you have to type up as a PMO. We'll get to the ISO a little bit. I'll talk a little bit more about it next week. Okay? Don't get ahead of yourself here. I'm guiding you through the process, and that's why I'm moving everything around so that you get to see all aspects of it. And you're looking at different people's machines, because how many of your cybersecurity? You're going to go out and audit machines. You're going to be this validator. So you better good know how to go and look at each one of these type of controls. I don't want you to validate your own system, because you'll never be ISO certified if you are. Okay? You have to have someone outside your organization come and validate your system. That's why I'm moving them around so that you get the real world experience of it. Because you're going to have a third party that's going to be the approval authority based on the recommendations of the validator. Yes?
I am completely lost here. So we're not implementing anything on the server these next 2 weeks.
These next 2 weeks is all policy. Tonight over this next week, and then the following week, you're write the policies. You're going to find all these controls that you need, like this DCPR-1. Any of these controls that will help implement this to be successful on the STIG, then you need to.
The STIG and then I match it up to this.
Right.
Okay.
Then it tells you exactly what you need to do to implement to make this STIG compliant.
Okay.
Does that make sense now? Once you have that, then you're going to be able to go through the process. You'll know which ones you have to actually write a policy out for, like a COOP or a DRP. I don't want you to write a 120-page DRP, please. I want you to keep it real simple. Just say this is the DRP. You're going through the process here. Okay?
So can I bring in works, DRP, and COOP and everything else?
No.
Read
Because that's
pages of
no.
coverage?
You're going to limit you to 2 pages for a disaster recovery plan, 2 pages for a COOP. I'm really minimizing it here because otherwise you wouldn't have the time to complete it. Okay? I'm just trying to get you the taste of how to go around. Does that make sense? Everyone okay with that?
So we're using a security policy as our template for this?
No. It's bigger than just a security policy. Security policy is one aspect out of 140 controls. I did this when I did the security audit up there in Tulsa. And out of the 137 controls, they passed 4.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. So that's why it's important to know these so that you can understand what the different processes are. And you'll get to see you have a cryptography class now. You have the computer security class, the trusted source stuff. You have security commerce, which is this one, how to secure your websites. You're going to be putting network security. You're going to be putting all these pieces of the puzzle together in this class. You'll be able to see where each one of these controls come from each different class and how to learn and how to secure them. How many of you have really thought about how to put all the pieces of the puzzle together? You just know, hey, I got to get this to graduate, right? How many of you actually sit back, what have I learned in this class that will help me in this next, just a couple of you. When you start thinking like that, your level of expertise is going to go up immensely. Because now you can understand, this class, even though I made a C in it, was very valuable to me, so I got these concepts out of that class. Now that you can apply them in this scenario, it's going to make a world of a difference. Any questions? I know I have thoroughly confused you with DICAP. Be glad I don't have you for 8 hours a day for 2 weeks straight. You would all have gray hair by the time I got done with you. But you would know security policies in and out. You'd know how to do validation processes in and out. Okay? It's pretty simple. It's just a lot of information to take on. So we'll go back over this again next week, and I'll do a couple of them with you. And then you get it, and then you divide them out over your team, and then we'll come back and start the ISO process. Any questions? Okay. I got you those links. Here's going to be the new numbers. Okay. Week 3 and 4. Team 1, you're dealing with Bob. Team 2 with Jack. Team 3 with Tony. Team 4 with Sue. Team 5 with Dean. Okay. Week 5 and 6, Team 2 will have Bob. Jack will have 3. 4 will deal with Tony. 5 will deal with Sue. And 1 will deal with Dean. Week 7, Team 3 will have Bob. 4 will have Jack. 5 will have Tony. 1 will have Sue. And 2 will have Dean. Then finally, week 8, 4 will have Bob. 5 will have Jack. 1 will have Tony. 2 will have Sue. And 3 will have Dean. Everyone make sense of that? Just write down what group, which one you're going to have on which weeks.